O sahibta ki الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. يقول الله عز وجل: وإنه لتنزيل رب العالمين نزل به الروح الأمين على قلبك لتكون من المنذرين بلسان عربي مبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Last week, we started our new series on Islamic history of the Islamic sciences. This week, inshallah, it will be a continuation of the same series. And today, inshallah, I'm going to delve into a bit more history than I done last week. Okay, last week was just an intro, then it was the virtues of the Quran. Today, inshallah, we'll go through the virtues of certain surahs and certain verses of the Quran, and who were the scholars that wrote on this topic of Fada'ilul Quran. There was many scholars that wrote on this topic of Fada'ilul Quran, early scholars. Now, the topic of Quran, as we know, is vast. We're going to come and we're going to approach it from a historical point of view. We're going to approach it from a very historical point of view of how the Quran was compiled. I said this last week of what exactly the procedure that we're going to go through. First, we're going to go through the compilation of the Quran. Then we're going to go through the compilation of Hadith. Then we're going to go through the compilation of Fiqh. Then we're going to go through, inshallah, the compilation of Aqidah. Okay? And then, inshallah, if Allah gives us tawfiq, then we'll carry on more. So to start off with, inshallah, I'm going to go through some history of the books that are written on this topic. Of course, I'm using this book of Hafiz al-Mundhiri. I quoted you this last week. He was one of the greatest huffaz of his time. Huffaz meaning a Hafiz. Anyone remember from last week? A Hafiz of Hadith means a person who memorized 100,000 Hadith, minimum, with the chain, with the sanad, with the asanid. This is called the Hafiz al-Hadith. Imam al-Mundhiri was one of those great Huffaz al-Hadith. Okay, he wrote this book as a comprehensive book on virtues, generally virtues of doing good actions. Then I quoted to you Hafiz al-Dimyati, Sharafuddin al-Dimyati. He was also one of the greatest, if not one of the greatest scholars of the 6th century. Him being the ustad, him being the teacher of Hafiz al-Mizzi, Hafiz al-Dhahabi, Hafiz ibn Kathir, all those great Huffaz al-Hadith, they studied under Imam Sharafuddin al-Dimyati. And inshallah, we're going to go through the books that he's written. The earliest book that was written on Fada'ilul Quran individually, this is an individual separate compilation. printed as a separate book. Okay, not within compilations. We're not talking about, for example, chapter of Fadailul Quran in Sahih al-Bukhari, in Muslim, in Tirmidhi. No, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about a separate book that was written by the earlier scholars. So the first ever person to write on Fadailul Quran was Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Sallam. He's a very famous scholar within the within the ranks of the scholars, especially when it comes to Ulum al-Quran. Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Sallam. He passed away 224. He passed away 224. Who knows when Imam Bukhari passed away? Anyone? No? You need to know this. You need to know this. The greatest scholar of hadith in the world, and you don't know when he passed away. Huh? You need to know this. As a Muslim, you need to know this. As a bare minimum, you need to know this. You don't even need to be a student to know this. Okay? 256 after Hijrah. 256 after Hijrah. This shows that Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Sallam died before Imam Bukhari. So most probably, either he was one of the ustads of Imam Bukhari himself. Okay? He also wrote on Nasikh and Mansukh, which is extremely important in Ulum al-Quran. In order for you to understand the Quran, you need to understand Nasikh and Mansukh. That's one of the conditions of a mufassir. One of the conditions of a person who wants to make tafsir, give explanation to the Quran, he must know Nasikh and Mansukh. And one of the earliest books written on Nasikh and Mansukh as well is Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Sallam. Okay? Another book that he's written is on Lughatul Qaba'il fil Quran. Lughatul Qaba'il, basically foreign words that are found inside the Quran, that were adopted within the Quran. Okay? That were adopted within the Quran. So that's the first ever person that wrote on Fadailul Quran, most probably Nasikh and Mansukh, and Lughatul Quran. Okay, words that were originally foreign, but later on adopted. Later on adopted. We'll go through this inshallah a bit on Ulum al-Quran. The second person to write on this topic was Ibn Dirris with a dot. Ibn Dirris, dot. He passed away 294. Imam Suyuti, everyone's heard of Imam Suyuti, yeah? Imam Suyuti relies on him heavily. In his Durrul Manthur and in many of his other books as well. Durrul Manthur is one of his famous books on Tafsirul Quran according to narration based. What does narration based mean? He's going to basically discuss an ayah, and under the ayah, whichever hadith or saying of a sahabi or saying of a tabi'i is connected to that verse, he's going to quote it to you in that tafsir. Okay? It's a narration based tafsir. We call it tafsir bil-riwayah. Tafsir bil-riwayah. We're going to go through this inshallah in Ulum al-Quran as well. I forgot to say, Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Sallam, his book is the earliest book, as we said, yeah? His book is basically the mother of all books on this topic of Fadail al-Quran. Just like in Tafsir, the mother of all Tafsir is Tafsir Ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Passed away? Anyone know? 310, mashallah. Very good. 310 after Hijrah. Then we find another Hafidh of Hadith, the third Hafidh al-Hadith that we find that wrote on the same topic of Fadail al-Quran was Al-Firyabi. Firyabi is very famous, especially when it comes to language, the perspectives of language. He was an amazing scholar in Lugha. Then fourth was Imam An-Nasa'i. Everyone's heard of Nasa'i? One of the compilers of the six? Yes? He passed away 303 after Hijrah. 303 after Hijrah. So him also, mashallah, he wrote a separate book on Fadailul Quran. But if you look at the narrations that he narrates, of course, all of these books that I'm quoting to you, all of these books have full sanad. Just like in the original books like Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi, you have the full sanad going back to Rasulullah. Likewise, all of these books that I've quoted to you so far have full sanad for each and every single narration that they bring for the virtue of this surah or the virtue of that ayah or the virtue of certain, even the virtue of Quran in general as well. So Imam al-Nasa'i, it resembles, not to say that all of it is the same, but it resembles the chapter that he has on Fadailul Quran in his Sunan, in his famous Sunan al-Nasa'i. Then, inshallah, we move on to the fifth person who wrote on this topic, which was Al-Mustaghfiri. Mustaghfiri, he was also a very famous scholar, and he wrote quite a thick book on this topic. Okay, he wrote a book, approximately 2 volumes, it's printed. All of these books that I'm quoting to you are printed in all the Arabic maktabat, okay? In all the Arabic libraries and all the Arabic printers, you can find it. You can find every single book of these. So Mustaghfiri, he wrote a full 2-volume book that's in print. He passed away 432. You can understand from the dates that I'm giving you, all of these are Hijri dates. All of these are Hijri dates. Okay, we go according to the Hijri date because it's Islamic. We understand it from Hijrah. And you can see that these are all the earliest scholars that ever wrote on this topic as well. This I emphasize more for students of knowledge, that there's a systematic approach that you approach the sciences of Quran and the science, all the sciences of Islam as well. The best are always the earliest. The more earlier you go, the understanding of that subject is going to be much more thorough. Although the later ulama might be more comprehensive in the sense that they gather all the narrations on one topic together, but the understanding, the extra fine points that you find are always going to be way better within the earlier scholars. Okay? That's why we always refer to the ulama of the earlier centuries, because their understanding is much more deep indeed than those that come after. Okay? It's 10 times, 100 times better that you study a scholar from the 2nd, 3rd century who was a great hafiz of hadith, an encyclopedia, photographic memory, yeah, than you study someone of the 21st century. That's the point that I'm making, okay? Or the past couple of centuries, unfortunately, yeah? And this is a manhaj. This is a manhaj that we follow. The 6th person that I found was Abul Fadl al-Razi. This is not the same Razi that wrote Tafsir al-Quran. Okay? This is not the author of Mafatih al-Ghaib. Tafsir al-Razi, he's a completely separate individual. Here, this is another Razi. Okay, Abul Fadl al-Razi, he passed away 454 after Hijrah. Later on, we find Hafiz ibn Kathir. I'm going to come back to the most comprehensive book, okay? This is just before Ibn Kathir. I'm going to come back just now. Ibn Kathir, he also wrote a separate book. We know Ibn Kathir from what? Come on, quote one book at least. Huh? It's Tafsir. Yeah? His Tafsir is famous. Everyone studies his Tafsir. All the sheikhs give the Tafsir lessons from Ibn Kathir. On the internet, what's translated, go to any apps, go to any translation that you want, any tafsir that you want to download, you find Tafsir ibn Kathir. Okay? Another thing that he's famous for is that he's a historian, isn't it? He's a historian, the muhaddith as well. He's a muhaddith, mufassir, and historian. So he passed away 774, or maybe other brothers will know by knowing that he's a student of Ibn Taymiyyah. Okay? Allama Ibn Taymiyyah, he was his student, one of his famous students. Ibn Kathir, he also wrote a separate book on Fadail al-Quran that's separate from his tafsir, completely separate from his tafsir. This is, of course, a small, concise book. It's not something which is detailed. He only tried to take out what was most authentic. Okay? Most authentic. He relies on sihha more than anything else. Then we find, just before Ibn Kathir, we find Hafiz al-Dimyati. Now, this is the person that I wanted to introduce to you today. Why? Because in the English language, for you, those who don't study Arabic, In the English language, there is no book that is more comprehensive than this book. Anyone that can buy it, inshallah, purchase this week. Okay? Zamzam Publishers, Virtues and Merits of the Quranic Chapters. Okay? Translated by Maulana Muhammad Muhammadi, South African. Very good translation. Very few printing mistakes. Hafiz al-Dimyati, he's the author. Sharafuddin al-Dimyati, one of the classical scholars. And now, inshallah, I'll go through. This is the book, yeah? Just to make, you can buy it for £6.95, Kitabun. I checked it up yesterday. Okay? £6.95, it's not much. Approximately 400 pages, but these pages are really small. If you look at the print inside, very small. Arabic is there, the references are there, and sometimes the authentication is there as well. Of course, him being the hadith scholar that he is, the authentication is a given. Okay? And he makes it a condition as well. So that just gives you more peace at heart. And it's one of the most comprehensive works, even within the Arabic literature as well. Okay? Even within the Arabic literature is one of the comprehensive, because he more or less focuses on the surahs and the verses more than the virtues of the Quran, like I gave last week. Okay? And inshallah, we're going to go through, inshallah, try to buy this book, and we're going to go through next week some of the surahs that Imam Hafiz al-Mundhiri, his teacher, misses out on. The surahs that the virtues of the surahs that he misses out on. So who is Hafiz al-Dimyati? We know that he's the student of Imam al-Mundhiri, the book that we're doing right now. This chapter that we're going to do on Fadailul Surah, okay, the virtues of surah. Hafiz al-Dimyati, he passed away 705 after Hijrah. He lived in Egypt. He went to Sham. He went to Haramain, Makkah and Medina. He took benefit from the ulama of Makkah and Medina. He went to Sham, Syria, Palestine. He took benefit from those scholars. And later on, he came back to Egypt. He came back to Egypt. That's where he passed away. That's where he passed away. Now, he studied under Hafiz al-Qastallani as well. Anyone know who Hafiz al-Qastallani is? Everyone knows who Ibn Hajar is. Huh? Who was Hafiz al-Qastallani? He was one of the greatest scholars of the Maliki madhab. He was one of the shurrah of Sahih al-Bukhari. One of the commentators upon Sahih al-Bukhari. The famous two commentaries of Sahih al-Bukhari is Fath al-Bari, Ibn Hajar, and Umdatul Qari. These are very lengthy. Each of them is like 20 volumes. Yeah, one is like approximately 16 volumes. Fath al-Bari, Umdatul Qari, mashallah, his fiqh and his language expertise made the explanation of the hadith of Bukhari into approximately over 20 volumes, depending on the print. Then, so first one was the Shafi'i. Ibn Hajar is a Shafi'i. Then you had the Hanafi come in between. Umdatul Qari, the great faqih, the great muhaddith as well. Umdatul Qari, Allama Aini. Then came Hafiz al-Qastallani. What he done was basically summarize the two and added a few extra points from Fath al-Bari and Umdatul Qari on the commentaries of Sahih al-Bukhari. So mashallah, he was an amazing Maliki scholar, and he produced something which is like a summary, which is extremely beneficial for students, okay, especially us studying. Izz ibn Abdis Salam, his title was Shaykhul Islam as well. Shaykhul Islam, Izz ibn Abdis Salam, he also was one of the teachers of Hafiz Sharafuddin al-Dimyati, this book that I want you to purchase, yeah? Inshallah. Virtues and Merits of the Holy Quran. Then we find his students. Who are his students? When you see the students, you understand who the person is. Like, for example, Ibn Taymiyyah, how do you understand the rank of Ibn Taymiyyah? By his students. If you have the likes of Ibn Kathir, if you have the likes of Hafiz al-Dhahabi sitting in your majlis, sitting in your circles, study circles, then you understand what level of scholar that person is himself. Okay? So, Hafiz al-Mizzi, Tahdhib al-Kamal, you know how big that book is? That book is 35 volumes in print. 35 volumes. You know what that book is on? So you know every single hadith in Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah. All the narrators, every single person that's on the chain, there were books written on their biographies in order to authenticate them or to discredit them, depending on their memory and all these other things that are, inshallah, we'll go through in Mustalah al-Hadith or Ulum al-Hadith. So all the narrators, they are judged and their biographies are judged in these books. So Tahdhib al-Kamal was written by Hafidh al-Mizzi. He was the teacher of Imam Dhahabi. Okay? Dhahabi is like hands down. When you hear the name Dhahabi in Hadith, hands down. He's the boss. He's the don. Okay? There's no one that can touch Dhahabi. Later on, Ibn Hajar comes and he tries. Okay? Khair, inshallah. Imam Burzuli, also a great scholar. I know him from the side of from being a muhaddith, more of a muhaddith. Then Ibn Sayyid al-Nas. Ibn Sayyid al-Nas also was a great scholar of hadith. Great scholar of hadith. Imagine he wrote one book here. I've got this at home as well. He's got one book, this thick, approximately 600 to 700 pages. Yeah? On tafsir of one verse. Tafsir of one verse in 700 pages. Imagine the depth that these ulama had in tafsir. Okay? Ibn Sayyid al-Nas. Remember that name, inshallah. Then also Hafidh al-Subki. Subki was one of the greatest scholars of the 7th century. One of the greatest scholars of the 7th century. He also studied with Allama ibn Taymiyyah for a certain while. So Hafidh al-Subki, he wrote Tabaqat al-Shafi'iyya. You know what Tabaqat al-Shafi'iyya is? The biographies of the scholars of the Shafi'i madhab. And this is one thing that I'm going to credit the Shafi'i madhab. You know, all these scholars that we're talking about, majority of them are Shafi'is. All these Huffaz al-Hadith that we're talking about, majority of them are Shafi'is. Hafidh al-Mundiri, Shafi'i. Hafidh al-Sharafuddin al-Dimyati, whom we're going through now, he's also Shafi'i. Ibn Hajar, Shafi'i. Dhahabi, Shafi'i. Bulqini, Shafi'i. Zarkashi, Shafi'i. Is that understood? Great scholars. Suyuti, Shafi'i. Isn't it? Great giants came. And mashallah, their literary works became so maqbool. Look at Imam Nawawi. Dunya, Hafidh al-Dunya, Shaykh al-Islam of Dunya. There's no circle in the world. There's no circle in the world that Riyadh al-Salihin is not studied. The Arba'in al-Nawawiyya, the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi is not studied. This is the type of qabuliyya, acceptance that Allah gave him on the face of the earth. He only lived for 45 years. He didn't live for much. He didn't live 80 years, 90 years, no. Only 45 years. But the amount of work that he achieved, no scholar can ever achieve. The amount of qabuliyya, acceptance that he has on all four corners of the globe, from the time that he was alive till, inshallah, the day of judgment. This is a clear sign of his acceptance. This is a clear sign of his acceptance in Quran and Hadith. He's khadim al-Quran wal Hadith. The great Shafi'i faqih, as well as the muhaddith. And I told you Ibn Kathir was also one of the students of Hafidh al-Dimyati. Okay? This is just for you to understand what level this scholar was upon. Okay? Some of the horses, some of the books that he wrote is a book on the virtue of horses. Subhanallah. The Arabs, they had a they were very passionate about the horses. They used to even keep the lineages of the horses. Okay? Just like we keep the lineage of Quran and Hadith and the books that are transmitted from generation to generation, from sheikh to sheikh. Likewise, they used to keep the nasab, the lineage of the camels, lineage of the horses. These were dear to them. These were really dear to them. These were sacred, to them. Very, not sacred, not to say they're sacred, but like they were very dear to them. Like Adba. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had Adba, one of the camels of Rasulullah, when he came to Medina, isn't it? And he stopped at the house of who? When he done hijrah, who did he come and stop? Come on. Guys, come on, I want you to learn something here. I don't want you to just sit here and take nothing in. I'm just talking and talking and talking. Huh? The Sahabi called Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. He also has a book on dhikr and tasbih, recite the dhikrs and the tasbih that should be recited after every fard salah. Okay? The dhikr and the tasbih that are masnoon, the sunnah, directly from a hadith, a sunnah, he had a whole book on this. And then last week I quoted to you about Matjarur Rabih. Okay, this is one of his books that he wrote just after this book. Just after his teacher wrote this book, he wrote a similar book, and that's also translated by the same author, by the same translator, sorry. Maulana Muhammadi from South Africa. The name of that's also something that you can buy with this book, inshallah. And it's on the same topic of virtues of Quran, and virtues of surahs, and virtues of, as well as virtues of other actions, virtues of salah, virtues of purity and hygiene, virtues of hajj, virtues of business, virtues of all those virtues of all the chapters that exist. And him, of course, he also done a great job, similar to Hafiz al-Mundhiri. He tried to gather as much virtues as he can. The translation of that is rewards for doing good deeds, if I remember correctly. Let me just check here. Yeah, the rewards for good deeds. Okay, same Hafiz al-Dimyati, and translated by Maulana Muhammad, same translator, South Africa. MashaAllah, amazing, absolutely amazing book. If you want something in English, one brother, he told me last week, is there any translation of the book that I'm reading from? Yes, there is. It's an abridged translation. Okay, it's an abridged translation on the name of awareness and apprehension. Awareness and apprehension. That's the translation that they gave to Targhib or Tarhib. I gave you a simple translation: encouragement and warning. Okay, encouragement towards good deeds and warning towards evils. Okay, the awareness and apprehension. It's quite a thick volume, but it's an abridged version of this book. Okay, it only narrates only that which is sahih, basically. Okay, and then there's commentary there as well, for you to not misunderstand any hadiths, because you don't have an ustad. Okay, therefore they give the correct commentary as well from the classical commentaries. Hafiz al-Mizzi, just to finish off, inshallah, of who Hafiz al-Dimyati was. Hafiz al-Mizzi says, "Ma ra'aytu ahfadha minhu." I've never seen anyone that was more memorizing of hadith than him. There's no one on his caliber. Okay, that itself should make you understand the caliber and the rank of this person. Now we go on to the most comprehensive book ever written in history on this topic of Fada'ilul Quran. He passed away before these scholars. Okay, he passed away before Dimyati. He passed away before Ibn Kathir as well. Okay, he passed away 619 after Hijrah. 619 after Hijrah. The book's name is Lamahatul Anwar wa Nafahatul Azhar. Lamahatul Anwar wa Nafahatul Azhar. This has approximately 2,000 narrations. 2,000 narrations. 343 chapters. Okay? And he gathered it from 70 earlier works before him, before the 6th century. He died 619. Okay? And he gathered inside the 70 books. Some of them are individual separate books, and some of them are already found within Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Nasa'i, and other books like Sahih ibn Hibban, Ibn Khuzaymah, Darimi, all those other books, Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, Musannaf Abdul Razak, and many others. Okay? He wrote from many books that are lost, cannot be found today. They're only seen as references today in the books. Okay? Many books got lost. Many books got burnt. Many books got thrown inside remember the Tatars. Yeah? Everyone knows that story. The heinous crimes. So many books got lost, and some from those books that got lost that he includes within his book is Abu Dharr al-Harawi, Ibn Sakhar, and Ibn Habib, and many others. Okay, many others that are completely lost. We don't have any iota of knowledge within these, besides references, maximum. So he compiled 70 books in one book. So you must understand how comprehensive this book is. Okay, over 2,000 narrations approximately. And his name was Abdul Wahid al-Ghafiqi al-Andalusi. He was a Spanish scholar. Spain, approximately how many years? 800 years was in the hands of Muslims, isn't it? He was one of those Spanish scholars, inshallah. In English, I gave you the book that inshallah you should purchase. Okay? Jazakumullah khair. Now we can move on to our topic of the day, which was the virtues of certain surahs. Virtues of certain surahs. What's the first surah inside the Quran? Surah Fatiha. Yeah? Everyone knows that, at least. Everyone needs to know this. Surah Fatiha. عن أبي سعيد بن المعلى رضي الله عنه قال كنت أصلي بالمسجد فدعاني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فلم أجبه ثم أتيته فقلت يا رسول الله إني كنت أصلي فقال ألم يقل الله تعالى استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم ثم قال لأعلمنك سورة هي أعظم سورة في القرآن قبل أن تخرج من المسجد فأخذ بيدي فلما أردنا أن نخرج قلت يا رسول الله إنك قلت لأعلمنك أعظم سورة في القرآن قال الحمد لله رب العالمين هي السبع المثاني والقرآن الذي أوتيته رواه البخاري وأبو داود والنسائي وابن ماجه. Here, the Sahabi on the name of Sa'id ibn Mu'alla, he was praying inside the masjid. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam called him. He was praying, so he didn't respond to the call of Rasulullah. He finished prayer, then he came to Rasulullah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, why didn't you respond to my call? Why didn't you respond to my call? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, istajibu lillahi walil rasuli idha da'akum. Respond immediately. Respond instantaneously when Allah calls or Rasulullah calls. When Allah calls or Rasulullah calls. Here, inshallah, on this note, I'm going to give you one small story. You know, in Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, when the treaty was being written between the Makkans and the Medinians, the Muhajirin. At that time, Ali radiallahu anhu, or one of the other Sahab, Ali radiallahu anhu, if I remember correctly, Ali radiallahu anhu was the one that was writing. He was the scribe of Rasulullah. And we're going to go through the scribes in detail, inshallah, of the Quran. Those who compiled the Quran. Ali radiallahu anhu was told by the other person, the Makkan, to delete the word Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah. Ali said, no, no way. Rasulullah is telling him, delete my name, delete Rasulullah, because they don't agree. The person, the messenger, is saying that they don't agree for you to be Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah. Makkans don't agree. Polytheists, idolaters. Ali radiallahu anhu says, never. This is adab. This adab. Al-adabu fawqa kulli shay. Adab is over everything. Adab comes first. Many of the scholars that had the privilege to study under Imam Ghazali, Hujjatul Islam al-Ghazali, the proof of Islam. They said, we studied etiquettes and mannerisms for 20 years. Others said 30 years. And then we studied ilm for another 10 years. Okay, that speaks a lot. That speaks. So, Ali radiallahu anhu, he didn't do it out of his own, takabbur or something. No. This was out of respect of Rasul. This was out of respect of Rasulullah. How can I delete? When I wrote Rasulullah, and I know this is the Rasulullah, this is the messenger of Allah, the final and the last, how can I delete this? So then Rasulullah said, show me where this is written. And Rasulullah deleted it himself. He raised it himself. The adab that they had to for Rasulullah. They wouldn't even raise their voices because the verse came, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti nabi. Not allowed. Some Sahabas went into isolation and they started crying. And we've become munafiq. We've lost our iman. How are we believers? You understand? Because they were so scared. Sometimes they're humans. They used to raise their voices, even when they're speaking to Rasulullah, because Rasulullah had a very kind character, beautiful character, soft character. There were Sahabas that used to have loud voices. But these Sahabas, they got scared when this verse came down. What type of crime did we commit? Everything. We're going to lose everything. We're going to lose all good deeds. Everything we're going to lose. So, then Rasulullah gave them, he said, no, you're not from amongst them. Those Sahabas that thought like that, he said, no, you guys are not from amongst them. Don't worry. You guys are not the hypocrites. Anyway, let's do this hadith. So, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said this. So this was out of, he thought, this is what the Sahabi thought. Okay? And what was more better was to respond to Rasulullah's call immediately. Okay? That's why Rasulullah taught him now. This is what you were supposed to do. And there's another narration that mentions Ubay bin Ka'ab. You know Ubay bin Ka'ab? You have to know Ubay bin Ka'ab. There's no way that you can sit in this lesson and not know Ubay bin Ka'ab. Ubay bin Ka'ab was the Qari'ul Qurra of all the Sahaba. Ubay bin Ka'ab is someone that you have to register inside here. At least if you don't go with anything, you have to go with this, at least one thing. Ubay bin Ka'ab was the same Sahabi that Umar ibn al-Khattab appointed for Taraweeh Salah, 20 rakats. 20 rakats. Okay? Ubay bin Ka'ab, he was well known. Okay? Absolutely well known to be the greatest Qari of the Quran, as well as the Tafsir. He was one of the most knowledgeable ones that knew the Tafsir, and he was one of the scribes of the Quran as well. We'll go through that, inshallah. So this story is narrated on Ubay bin Ka'ab as well. Very similar story. That Rasulullah called him and he was praying and he didn't answer. He didn't respond. Then Rasulullah said, shall I not teach you? And this is with emphasis. La u'allimannaka. Emphasis upon emphasis upon emphasis. 3 emphasis. Okay? Shall I not teach you the greatest surah of the Quran? And before I leave the masjid, he took me by my hand. Sahabi says, he took me by my hand. And when we wanted to leave, he said, Ya Rasulullah, didn't you say that you're going to teach me the greatest surah of the Quran? And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And he full surah, Fatiha. He says, these are the 7 oft repeated verses of the Quran. There is no scholar that ever became a scholar. There is no Muslim that became a Muslim. There is no wali, saint of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ummah except that he read Surah Fatiha to be great. Isn't it? Without Surah Fatiha, can you pray Salah? Not possible, isn't it? So, هي أعظم سورة في القرآن قال الحمد لله رب العالمين هي السبع المثاني والقرآن الذي أوتيت, and the Quran which I have been given. This is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim and many others. Inshallah, what I'm going to try to do, because of time, I'm going to try to go through the surahs very quickly. Okay, I've made notes already. So instead of quoting to you all the Arabic, it's going to take time. I'm going to try to go through all the surahs and the virtues. Okay, if you want to refer back to the book, I told you the abridged version is called Awareness and Apprehension. Most of those hadith you'll find. Some of these hadith that I'm going to give you the virtues of these surahs, you might not find. So Surah Fatiha, number 1, greatest surah of the Quran, which is the hadith that I mentioned to you now. Number 2, more superior than Torah, Injil, and of the Quran as well, of other surahs of the Quran. Okay, is more superior, most superior. Number 3, it is the best of the Quran. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it's the best, khair. Okay, just like we said, khairukum man ta'allama al-Qur'ana wa 'allama. The best of you is the one who teaches the Quran and the one who learns the Quran and teaches the Quran. Likewise, here also, Rasulullah used the word khair for Surah Al-Fatiha. Hadith Qudsi. Who remembers what a Hadith Qudsi is? Last week I mentioned this. Anyone remember? Hadith Qudsi. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Allah said in a hadith. Of course, you can't recite that inside the salah. Okay? when Rasulullah, these are special hadiths. There's approximately 500 to 600 hadiths like this. Okay, in the hadith literature, there's approximately 500 to 600 hadith with weaknesses, of course. Okay, not all of them are going to be authentic, but approximately 500 to 600. So in the hadith Qudsi, Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, half of the Quran, this is authentic 100%. Okay, half the Surah Al-Fatiha is for me and half the Surah Al-Fatiha is for, and this is a famous. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Hamidani Abdi, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Then he said, what's the, let me find the, yeah, here, Hamidani Abdi. My servant has praised me. Okay, my servant has praised me. Then Athna alay, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Athna alay Abdi. He has excessively praised me. Okay, if I can say in English that way. Then when you say Maliki Yawmiddin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Majjadani Abdi. My servant has exhorted me and praised me extremely. Okay? Then when you say Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in until the end of the surah, this is for my servant. This is a dua from my servant, and I give whatever my servant asks. Whatever he asks, I give him. But the rest of the surah is, the first few ayats are praise, and the last couple of ayats are like a dua. Okay? So half is for me and half is for my servant. Then number 5, no Nabi was given before me the two lights. What are the two lights? Surah Fatiha and last verses of Surah Baqarah. From Aman al-Rasul, you'll see the Imam reciting all the time, yeah? Aman al-Rasul bima unzila ilayhi min rabbihi wal mu'minun until the end of the surah, Surah al-Baqarah. So these two parts, Surah Fatiha and and the last two verses of Surah al-Baqarah are known as the two lights. Okay? Two lights. Then we go on to Surah Baqarah and Al Imran. In Surah Al-Baqarah, whoever recites Surah Al-Baqarah, the shaitan flees from that house which Surah Al-Baqarah is read for 3 days. And in the narration it mentions, whoever recites it in the daytime, then for 3 days, the shaitan will not be able to enter. Okay, any mischievous, shaitanic things will not be able. This is one of the best ruqyah. Surah Fatiha and Surah Baqarah is the best ruqyah in the world. Okay, if you can't recite it yourself, go YouTube. Check YouTube. Any reciter that you like, mashallah, let them. So 3 nights or 3 days, same thing, no more or less. So for 3 days you have extra protection. Surah Al-Baqarah, you must be read inside the houses. Best type of ruqyah. You want to stay away from you want jinn protection, you want issues that you're having with maybe with black magic or something. All those things will be sorted out, inshallah. One of the narrations that is mentioned inside that book. Okay, that's why I'm telling you, next week get that book. Yeah, try to get that book. Try to purchase that book. One of the narrations that's mentioned inside there talks about a Sahabi that was extremely ill, and they say it was magic, black magic. Another Sahabi, he came and done ruqyah with what? With Surah Fatiha. Now, the ruqyah that's not permissible is that which has shirk, is that which has words of kufr. That is absolutely, completely not allowed. Absolutely not allowed. A person will go out of the fold of Islam if that happens. Okay. But we are allowed to do ruqyah because why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ. The Quran is a shifa. The Quran is a absolute shifa. Every single verse, as long as you know where to apply it, how to apply it, this is where the scholars come in, and this is where the works of the scholars come in as well. Okay? The whole Quran is a shifa, is revealed as a shifa for you. Spiritual as well as physical. Okay? Spiritual as well as physical. Some people think, oh, it's just a spiritual thing. It's just with jadoo. No, it's not with jadoo. It's with physical as well. So Surah Fatiha, he recited for 3 days and nights upon that other Sahaba. 3 days and nights. The person stood up like as if, you let go of a camel from his rope. He stood up completely well. 3 days and nights, he was continuously reciting Surah Fatiha. Because he knew the virtues of Surah Fatiha. Rasulullah called him. He said, hey, come, let's see. What did you do? Because the report went to Rasulullah. So this Sahabi came to Rasulullah and he explained, this is what I done, Rasulullah. Ya Rasulullah. Rasulullah said, you have done such a great thing. He praised him for his action. He praised him for his action. You've taken money. The person who became well, he gave him some money because the person, he spent 3 days reciting Surah Fatiha upon this person. So he said, this money is completely halal for you. There's nothing wrong with this. This money, completely halal. That's a side point. Let's go, inshallah, Baqarah. Rasulullah says, Baqarah is sanamul Quran. Sanam means the peak, like the peak of a mountain. The highest point. The highest point of Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah. I mean, it's the longest as well. It's 286 verses, isn't it? 286 verses. It's one of the longest surahs in the Quran. And my sheikhs, when I was in Syria, when I completed Surah Al-Baqarah, so first you have to do Juz Amma. If you're reciting for Ijaza, you have to recite the Juz Amma first. Correct your Juz Amma. Those are small verses. And if you can correct the Makharij in those verses, then inshallah, slowly, the bigger verses won't be a problem. After I completed Surah Al-Baqarah, both sheikhs of mine that I used to go to, after Asr and after Maghrib, both sheikhs in both different masjids, both of them said that a person who finishes Surah Al-Baqarah is considered to us as an alim. It's considered to us as a scholar of Quran. SubhanAllah. And another sheikh said, Hafiz of Quran. Already. You don't even need to do the rest. Sahabas took 10 years. Sahabas took 10 years to understand every nitty-gritty, every small detail. Because they used to practice upon every single verse. Practice upon every single verse before they go into the next verse. This is Sahaba. This is how they understood. So when I say Ubay bin Ka'ab was the best of the best in Quran, amongst all the Sahaba, hands down, okay? He was the best. In every single aspect of the Quran, he was the best. In the meanings of the Quran, he was the best. In the different dialects, the Quran was revealed in 10 different qira'at, isn't it? 10 different ways of recitation. If you go to different mosques, mashallah, different sheikhs will define. If you go to Egypt, or if you go to, for example, Mauritania or Morocco, Algeria, they recite in Warsh, isn't it? If you go to Libya, they'll recite in Qalun. Different qira'at, all are mutawatir. All of them are absolutely accepted, and all of them are on the same level of tawatur. Tawatur means mass transmitted in every single generation, transmitted among so many people that it's impossible for you to discredit. The example that I give, and I'll give again, inshallah, when we go through Ulumul Hadith, is the news of the Twin Towers. Who doesn't know the news of the Twin Towers? Can anyone reject the news of the Twin Towers? It came from so many sources, it's impossible for you to reject. Same thing with the Quran. The Quran was revealed from so many sources, it's absolutely impossible. No one can come and discredit the Quran in any way or form. It's understood. And all the 10 qira'at are mutawatir. The word that's used in Arabic is mutawatir. Okay. So, Surah Al-Baqarah is the sanam al-Quran, the peak, the highest point of the Quran. With each and every single verse of Surah Al-Baqarah, 80 angels came down. 80 angels came down with each and every single verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. Just for us to understand how important Surah Al-Baqarah is. And it's the surah which has the most amount of rulings. You want to know about the rulings of Islam, halal and haram, divorce, and all those issues, go to Surah Al-Baqarah. That's why Surah Al-Baqarah has the most explanation compared to all the other small surahs at the back. Surahs at the back, they have Makkan surahs. They have to do with Aqidah. They have to do with the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Tawheed, all those things, Akhirah, the hereafter, Jannah, Jahannam, refuting the atheists and polytheists and all those. Those things are to do with the last, you can even say last half of the Quran. Okay? First half of the Quran, majority, to do with ahkam, to do with rulings. Not to say that the rulings dominate. The verses of rulings maximum Even by indication, maximum the scholars said 500 verses, no more than 500 verses. The majority of the Quran is not rulings. Okay, it's a book of hidayah, guidance, inspiration, motivation. That's why you open any book of the Quran, even if you recite any page of the Quran, most of the time it's talking about what? Talking about akhirah. Okay, what? Akhirah. Most of the pages. I can guarantee you, open any page. Open any page. It's one verse or another will talk about akhirah. Is that understood? Then within Surah Al-Baqarah is verse 220, verse 255, isn't it? Ayatul Kursi. Ayatul Kursi is such that Allah subhanahu this was given to Rasulullah from under the treasures of the Arsh, the throne of Allah subhanahu. Okay? Ayatul Kursi was a treasure that was given to Rasulullah from under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why there's so many benefits to do with Ayatul Kursi. After every single Fard Salah, Imam Mundiri covers it in a different chapter. He doesn't go into detail here. After every single Fard Salah, this is one thing that we should try to implement within our lives. We recite every single day after every single Fard Salah, even if you're alone, even if you're not praying with Jama'ah, okay, even if you're praying alone and you can't pray in Jama'ah, you're at work, for example, then always make this a habit after every single Salah that I must read Ayatul Kursi at the bare minimum. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. Everyone knows this, yeah? Everyone knows this. You must read this. Why? If you die before the next Salah, what happens? No accountability. You go straight into Jannah. Who doesn't want to go into Jannah? We've all done mistakes, isn't it? We are all gunagar. Kullu bani adama khata' wa khata'un. Khairul khata'in tawabina. So, yeah, Ayatul Kursi, that's one of the benefits, inshallah. Surah Yasin is known as the heart of the Quran. Everything has a heart. Without the heart, can a human being function? Possible? Not possible. It's not possible, is it? So everything has a heart, and the heart of the Quran is Surah Yasin. In another one to do with Ayatul Kursi was the leader of all verses of the Quran. So the Quran has over 6,000 verses. The leader, Sayyid, okay, Sayyid of the verses of all the Quran is Ayatul Kursi. Okay, the greatest. So that one we said about Surah. That one we said about Surah, the best Surah, isn't it? Surah Fatiha. But the best verse, Ayatul Kursi. Okay. Angels came down like lanterns when Baqarah is read. This is a small story where Sahabi was reciting Surah Al-Baqarah and he could see literally with his own eyes, naked eyes, that there were angels coming down. And he got scared. He got a bit scared because he had his child with him. He was thinking like maybe he might come and attack or something. You know, he didn't know what this was, but this was lights of angels coming towards him. Rasulullah ﷺ said, if you continued reading the Quran, you would have seen, right until the morning, all the people would have seen the angels. They would have seen with their own eyes the angels. Subhanallah. So this was a virtue of Baqarah. Surah Baqarah and Al Imran are like two blossoming flowers. Two blossoming flowers that will give you shade under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, everyone wants to be under the shade of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? Surah Baqarah and Surah Al Imran are like two flowers that will give you shade on the day of judgment when you need it the most, when I need it the most. So inshallah, we try to make that a habit. We recite Surah Al Imran and Surah Baqarah as well. The last two verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, I said, as well as the whole Surah Al-Baqarah, the last two verses from Aman al-Rasul until the end, 3-day shaitan protection, that we said. Another thing was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote them 2,000 years before He created the heavens and the earth. Okay? This is the specific virtue of these two verses. Aman al-Rasul bima unzila ilayhi until واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Then we go on to Al Imran, the last couple of verses at the ending of Surah Al Imran, where the Imams always recite as well. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في contemplating ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض. Can you contemplate upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No. Haram for us, isn't it? Haram. What should we contemplate on to understand the greatness of Allah? His creation. The sky, the heavens, the mountains, the oceans, the rivers, the way that He's made the earth for us, all the minerals and everything that He's created, all the trees, all the different fruits, all the different colors, all the different animals, all the different types of human beings, all the finger identity. Isn't it? Yeah? How does this become, subhanAllah, such a miracle, isn't it? We'll talk about that another day, inshallah. Scientific miracles of the Quran. So the last couple of verses in Surah Al Imran, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Wailun." What does wailun mean? Destruction. Woe. Woe unto the person that recites these last couple of verses from Inna fi khalqi samawati till the end of the Surah Al Imran, and he doesn't ponder upon the meanings. Powerful, very powerful. Very powerful, mashallah. And then we said the greatest verse of the Quran is Ayatul Kursi, and it will be the leader of all the verses on the Day of Judgment. Leader of all the verses on the Day of Judgment. Sometimes we think, oh, we can't reach the rank of a Hafiz. We don't need to reach the rank of a Hafiz. That must be your ambition. Never stop that. Never stop the ambition. The ambition must be there in your heart every single time. And inshallah, if the ambition is true and you become Sahibul Quran, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, does Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, Hafidul Quran? All the narrations that I quoted to you last week, none of them mention Hafidul Quran. Intended meaning is generally Hafidul, because of the verse that he says, Iqra wartaqi. Okay? Ascend, recite and ascend. It shows he was a Hafidh. But the other virtues to do with Quran, it says Sahibul Quran. What's a Sahib? Sahaba, Ashabu Rasulillah. What's Sahaba? The companions. The companion of the Quran. The one that was like this with the Quran all his life. This is called Sahibul Quran. So on the Day of Judgment, if a person was sincere in his heart, on the Day of Judgment, a person might, because of his connection that he had with the Quran on a day-to-day basis, he will be resurrected with the Huffaz al-Quran. Isn't it? And in another verse, we know that many of the Huffaz will be thrown into Jahannam on their faces. Isn't it? Because he used to do it out of fame and name. People must call me this and people must call me that. Isn't it? Huh? So Sahibul Quran, remember. Be a Sahibul Quran. The Quran will intercede on your behalf. Next we go on to Surah Al-Kahf. Today is Friday, isn't it? Thursday night. Is Friday started already, according to. So, in some narrations, it comes as the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. In some narrations, it mentions the first 3 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. Some other narrations mention the last 10 verses of the Surah Al-Kahf. Whoever recites these or whoever recites those will be protected from the greatest of all fitna. Ad-Dajjal al-A'war, isn't it? Ad-Dajjal al-A'war, the blind Dajjal. You'll be protected from the greatest of fitna. So therefore, even if Dajjal doesn't come out within our times, we're going to be protected from every single other fitna that is less than Dajjal, isn't it? Otherwise, why would Rasulullah tell us? Huh? So the ulama say that it's referring to the whole surah, because in another place it mentions the whole surah al-Kahf. Whoever recites the whole surah al-Kahf will be protected from all types of evils until the next 8 days. Okay, this hadith mentions from one Jumu'ah to the other Jumu'ah. For 8 days protection. Full 8 days protection. Inshallah, from all types of evils. All types of evils. This is extremely important for you to protect yourself from calamities, protect yourself from, anything can happen. Road accident can happen. You can be burgled inside your house. Anything can happen. So this is extremely important. Save us from all types of calamities. Yasin, we said, is the heart of the Quran. A person who recites it is going to be forgiven. Is going to be غُفِرَ لَهُ. Okay, that word comes. And recite it upon اقرأوا القرآن على اقرأ سورة ياسين على موتاكم. Upon those who are dying as well as the deceased. Okay? One is at the time when a person is dying. This is a mas'ala that you need to know. Many people don't know, unfortunately. A time of ignorance, unfortunately. Okay? Mass ignorance. When a person is dying on the pangs of death, sakaratul maut, Allahumma a'inna ala ghamaratil mauti wa sakaratil maut, isn't it? The dua that Rasulullah taught us. At the pangs of death, another person should recite Surah Yasin. Why? Because Rasulullah says it gives him ease for the spirit or for the ruh to be extracted from that person. So at that moment, you should be reciting Surah Yasin. After the mayyit passed away, he's dead, he's on the hospital bed or he's inside the home, he's passed away, at that moment, you don't recite anything of the Quran because he needs a ghusl first. After his ghusl, you can recite Quran. After his burial, he's been put inside the grave, and then you can recite the Quran. It's masnoon, it's sunnah to recite the Quran. In another narration, it says, Surah Yasin, reciting Surah Yasin once gives the reward of 10 khatams of the Quran. When should we recite Surah Yasin? In the morning, generally. Generally, it is told in the hadith that we recite after Fajr. After Fajr. Okay? Make this a habit in your life. Recite Surah Yasin after Fajr. Recite Surah Waqi'ah after Maghrib. And Surah Mulk, which inshallah we're gonna go to just now. Okay? Surah Mulk after Isha. Make this a habit. This is what the ulama tell us. Surah Mulk every night. What is Surah Mulk? Surah Mulk is known as Al-Mani'a Al-Munajjiyah. The one who saves. Saves from what? Saves from the Adhab al-Qabr. Anyone wants to be protected from the Adhab al-Qabr, he needs to recite Surah Mulk every single night. Tabarakalladhi biyadihi al-mulku wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. That's one. Surah Al-Mulk has 30 verses, Rasulullah said. And it intercedes on the person's behalf until that person is totally forgiven. You want to be forgiven on the Day of Judgment? Read Surah Al-Mulk. You want to be protected inside your grave from the punishment of the grave? Read Surah Al-Mulk. Okay? Rasulullah says, my wish, my desire is that every single Muslim must memorize Surah Yasin. He must have it inside his heart. That's the words that he must. Surah Al-Mulk must be in the heart of every single Muslim, every single mu'min, believer. This was the desire and wish of Rasulullah. Everyone should try and make an effort to memorize at least Surah Al-Mulk, Surah Yasin, and Surah Al-Waqi'ah. Those are famous surahs that have extra virtues. Superior, extremely superior. In another version, it says, whoever recites Surah Al-Mulk, فَقَدْ أَكْثَرَ وَأَطْيَبَ. He has an extreme abundance of good. Inshallah, we'll stop here with the ending of Surah Al-Mulk and its virtues. Inshallah, we'll continue with the other ones. I expect you to buy that book, inshallah. Merits and Virtues of the Quran, of the surahs of the Quran by Hafiz al-Dimyati, Sharafuddin al-Dimyati. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله